Hello, this is Math 18, Section 1.3 video. Today we're going to look at subtracting integers. So look at the two expressions below. Both of these expressions are going to give us the same answer. The first problem, 8 minus 3, you just subtract, that gives you 5. But if we look at the second problem, 8 plus negative 3, that also, oops, sorry about that. Let me go back. 8 plus negative 3 also gives us 5. If we remember our addition rules from the last section, the signs are different, so you subtract and keep the larger sign. Now, most people would say, well, the first one's a lot easier. Yes, you're right. But there are going to be some examples where you're going to have to know how to change the signs. So today we're going to focus on learning to change the signs correctly, and the key phrase is going to be adding the opposite. Keep, change, and opposite. So that's what we're going to be working on with subtracting integers. So look at these two problems, these examples. Whenever we want to subtract one number from another, you have to add the opposite of the second number to the first number. So look at the first example. Subtract negative 21 minus negative 40. So it doesn't matter how far you go in math, you are never going to be able to subtract a negative number. You're going to have to change the signs there. So what we do is we keep, if we go from the first step to the second part, we keep the first number the same. So that's going to be the keep part. That's what we're going to remember. Okay? Negative 21 stays the same. And then we're going to change the subtraction to addition. So that's the change part of what we're going to remember. Keep, change, and then we take the opposite of the second number. So the second number from negative 40 becomes positive 40. So that's where we get opposite. So that's what you want to remember today. Keep, change, opposite. Now, once you have changed it to addition, to adding the opposite, you're going to follow your addition rules. So a negative and a positive, you have to subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. So 40 minus 21 gives us 19, and it's a positive because the 40 was the bigger number. Look at this next example. Normally, you can't subtract 15 minus 51 because 51 is bigger. So that's another reason for changing the signs. We keep the 15 the same. We change the subtraction to addition. That changes to addition. And we take the opposite of the second number. 51 becomes negative 51. So now we have two different signs. I have to subtract, and I'm going to keep the sign of the 51 because it's the larger number. So we get a negative 36. So here are the rules for subtracting integers. So once again, get out some index cards. The main thing that I would put on the rules for subtracting integers, I would write maybe subtract integers at the top, and keep, change, opposite, and follow the addition rules, okay? Because that's what you're doing. Anytime you have subtraction, you're going to change the subtraction signs to addition signs and take the opposite of the second number. So it's keep, change, opposite. That's what we're going to work on today. So here we're just going to look at practicing some changing the signs. So 20 minus 70, we just want to remember keep, change, and opposite. So that's going to be 20 stays the same, change it to addition, and the opposite of 70 would be negative 70. So now a positive and a negative, the signs are different, so I subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number, so I get negative 50. Let's look at this one, negative 20 minus 70. This is one so many people get wrong. So make sure you do your sign changing. So we do keep, negative 20 the same, change the subtraction to addition, and now the opposite of 70 would become negative 70. Now look at your signs. The signs are the same, so we add, keep the same sign. So that's going to be negative 90. All right, here, the next one, we have 20 minus a negative 70. So anytime we're subtracting a negative number, that's really why we have these sign rules, because that's just impossible to do. But they're actually a little bit easier to change than the ones on the previous slide. So here's our phrase again, keep, change, opposite. I want to remember that. Okay, so we're going to keep the 20, change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of negative 70 is going to become positive 70. Well, now it's just a plain old addition problem. 20 plus 70 gives you 90. Excuse me. Same thing on this one. We have keep the negative 20, change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of negative 70 becomes positive 70. So we have negative 20 and a positive 70. The signs are different. So remember, different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. So that's going to be positive 50. Sorry about that. All right, so let's look at some of these problems here. We have 15 minus 51. That looks pretty familiar. I think we've done that. So we keep the 15, change it to addition, okay, and take the opposite, negative 51. Okay, so I'm going to write our phrase up here. Keep, change, opposite. So is that something you could write on your test paper? Yes, as long as it comes from your head and not a cheat sheet. So you can write these little notes to yourself to help you remember when you're doing your test. So here 15 plus negative 51 we have to subtract, and we're going to get, let's see, what the heck is that? 4 minus 1, 36, and it should be a negative because the 51 is bigger. So negative 36. All right, number 2, same thing, subtraction. So we're going to keep the negative 8, change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of 16 would become negative 16. So a lot of times parentheses can help you. Just remember, if the number is not in parentheses to begin with, it's not a negative, it's a positive. But see down here on number 3, that's a negative 12. That's why it's in parentheses. So you can let parentheses help you. If it's not in parentheses, it's going to go into them. If it's in parentheses, it's going to come out of them. Okay? So to finish up number 2, two negatives there, we have to add and keep the sign, and we would get negative 24. Now, number 3, once again, we need to do keep, change, opposite. So we're going to keep the 6, and we're going to add, change it to addition, and the opposite of negative 12 would be positive 12. And then 6 plus 12 would be positive 18. All right, let's look at number 4. Negative 21 minus negative 40. So keep the negative 21, change it to addition, and the opposite is going to become positive 40. So now the signs are different, so we have to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So we know it's going to be a positive, and 40 minus 12 is what? 19. Okay? And it would be positive. Now, these next two, they're kind of scary looking. One thing you need to see is how many subtraction signs you have in this problem. And you have 1, 2, 3. So every time we have subtraction there, we're going to be doing keep, change, opposite, change, opposite, change, opposite. So because you're just going to work your way through. So we're going to keep negative 9, change it to addition, and the opposite of negative 11 becomes 11. Okay, so now the 11 there is now part of the keep for the next subtraction sign. So we keep the 11, change the the subtraction to addition, sorry, and then the opposite of 17 becomes negative 17. Okay, that's now the keep part. Change the subtraction to addition, and take the opposite of 4, which becomes negative 4. So let's talk through that again, because that's a lot of mess. So we keep the negative 9, change the subtraction to addition, keep, change, opposite. So the opposite of a negative 11 is positive 11. And then keep the 11, change to a plus. The opposite of 17 becomes negative 17. And then that's the keep part. Change the subtraction to addition, and keep, and now take the opposite of 4 would be negative 4. All right, so that's changing the signs. Now, we want to collect all the same signs. So we have three negatives here, -9, -17, and -4. Okay, so -9, we're going to add all these. -9 and -17 would be -26, plus -4 would be -30. Okay, plus the 11 comes down. So now it's all addition now. You follow your addition rules. The signs are different, so we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So we're going to get a negative, and when we subtract there, we get -19. All right, that's a pretty hard one. Look at number 6. Here we have 1, 2, 3 subtraction signs. Okay, so we're still going to do same, change, opposite all the way through. So the 2 stays the same. Change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of -3 becomes 3. Okay, change the subtraction, the 3 stays the same. Change the subtraction to addition, the opposite of 5 becomes -5. So notice how it wasn't in parentheses, but now it is. Okay, and then the last part we need to do change to addition, and take the opposite of -4 would be +4. Okay, so that to me is the hardest part, is getting those signs changed. You really need to practice that over and over and over again. Now we have 3 positive numbers. Okay, so 2 plus 3, that's 5, plus 4 would be 9, plus -5. Okay, and now you subtract, and that's going to give you a +4. Okay. All right, so here's some you tries. So pause your video and try them on your own. Okay, so let's look at these you tries. Now look at number 1, 36 minus 22. I know I've just been harping on you to change your signs, but this is where we want to use the KISS system, which is keep it simple, stupid. And I'm not meaning that you're stupid. I mean for me. So I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. 36 minus 22 is something you've been subtracting since you were in, what, 2nd grade? Okay? So just subtract. You don't need to change any signs. The first number is bigger than the second. There's no crazy negatives. Just subtract it. And that's going to give you what? 14, right? Yep, that's it. So keep it simple. Now, 3 minus 7. We are subtracting a bigger number here, so we do need to change the signs. So we're going to do keep the 3, change it to addition, and the opposite would be -7. And now the signs are different, so I subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number, which would give me -4. All right, back on number 1, because some people are like, I'm just learning how to change the signs. If I change the signs there, is it wrong? No, not at all. So you can still do keep, change, opposite on that one, or you can just subtract, either way. Look at number 3. You want to change the signs here. So we have keep the -5, change it to addition, and take the opposite of 9, which would become a -9. So be careful there. Okay. Now the signs are the same, so I add and keep the signs, which would give you -14. All right. Number 4. We have -8 minus -8. So we're going to do same, change, opposite, or keep, change, opposite. And that would be -8 is the keep part, keep it the same. Change it to addition. The opposite of -8 would be +8. And now the signs are different, so we subtract, and that gives you 0. Okay? All right, number 5. We have -6 minus -38 minus 2. So I have 2 subtraction signs here, right behind the -6 and right behind the 38. So I'm going to do keep, change to addition. Opposite would become +38. Now the 38 is the keep part. Change it to addition and take the opposite, which would become -2. Okay, so I have 2 negative numbers here, -6 and -2. I want to go ahead and add those and keep the sign, -8 plus 38. Now that the signs are different, I'm going to subtract and keep the bigger sign, so that would give me +30. All right, and the last one on this slide, 12 minus -33 minus 11 minus 25. So we have 1, 2, 3 subtraction signs here. So we're going to do keep the 12, change, and then the opposite becomes negative 33. Positive 33. Sorry about that. All right, and then the 33 is the keep part. Change it to addition. The opposite of 11 would be negative 11. That's really hard to get people to put that negative there, so be careful. Okay, so now negative 11 is our keep. Change it to addition, and the opposite of 25 would become negative 25. Okay, so now let's look at our problem. The first two numbers are positive, and the last two numbers are negative, so that worked out kind of nice. We're going to add the two sets of numbers. So 12 plus 33 would be 45. Is that right? Yep. Plus these two negatives we add and keep the sign, which would be negative 36. Okay? And now we need to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number, which would give you 9. Positive 9. Alright, so now we're going to look at some expressions and phrases that tell you that we're dealing with the operation of subtraction. So we have minus. Negative 5 minus 11 goes right in the order. You just write it just like that. Negative 5 minus 11. And you would change the signs and you would get a negative 16. So you can, I'm not going to go through all the steps of the solving it, mostly the translating part for right now. Now, when we have less, negative 3 less 5, we just have to take 5 away from the negative 3. So that just goes right in order. Okay? Now, this next one, this is one a lot of students have trouble with, the words less than. Notice it's not the same as less. When you have less than, look at what it says. Negative 8 less than negative 2. Well, if you want negative 8 less than negative 2, you have to take it away from the negative 2. So the order there is going to flip, okay? You have to be careful there. So just be careful on that. The order flips, okay? Now, whenever you have the difference between two numbers, that goes right in order. The difference between negative 5 and 4, negative 5 minus 4. Decrease by, same order. Negative 4 decreased by 9. Negative 4 minus 9. Here's the other one where the order flips. Subtract 8 from negative 3. So you have to put the negative 3 first and then subtract the 8 from it. Okay, so once again, on that last phrase there, the order flips. Okay, so make sure you realize that when you're doing those problems. Alright, so let's look at translating these expressions. It says find 9 less than negative 4. So remember with less than, the order has to flip. So what you want to do whenever you see less than, whatever's in front of those two words, you're going to put it at the end. Okay, so 9 less than, you're going to subtract 9 from negative 4. So that's what you're going to have set up. Negative 4 minus 9. Okay, so make sure you realize the order flips. So now we would have to do keep the negative 4, change it to addition, and the opposite would become negative 9. Okay, so now two negatives we add, keep the sign, which would be negative 13. Let's look at number 2. Find negative 22 decreased by 19. Okay, decreased by, the order is exactly the same. So we're going to write negative 22 decreased by, subtract 19. Okay, and now we have to do keep, change, opposite. So we have negative 22, keep that, plus, that's the change, and then the opposite is going to become negative 19. So now with these two negatives, the rule is add and keep the sign. So what would that be? Negative 41. Okay. And number 3, find the difference between negative 4 and negative 7. So difference is definitely subtraction, and it goes right in order. So you're going to have negative 4 minus, and be careful here, a negative 7. So you need to have that negative 7 in parentheses so that you keep it separate from that subtraction sign. So now we rewrite it, okay, using addition. Negative 4, keep that, change it to addition. The opposite is going to become positive 7. So negative 4 plus 7, we have to subtract keep the sign of the bigger number, and that would be positive 3. All right, here's a few more. Subtract 37 from negative 23. So when you say this, put a big emphasis on the word from. Subtract 37 from negative 23. So that means the negative 23 has to go first, and we're subtracting 37 from it. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully so. Now we do keep 23, negative 23, change it to addition, and the opposite would become negative 37. Okay, so the signs are the same, so we have to add and keep the sign, and let's see, that's going to be negative 60. Now this one's a little bit different. They're giving us the problem, and we want to translate the expression into words. Well, there are so many different ways that you can write this. You know it's subtraction. To me, one of the easiest ones would be to write 5 minus negative 9. Okay, you could also write the difference, it's a long word, between 5 and negative 9. Okay, could you say negative 9 less than 5? Yes, all those are different correct numbers, correct translations. So let's write that one on there too. Negative 9 less than 5. So if you get a problem like this in the homework or quiz, it will take, there's a whole bunch of different answers that are correct. Okay, so it just depends on, whichever one you put in there. So you just have to be careful about the order, but you can keep it simple and just do 5 minus negative 9. That's an expression right there, no problem. Okay, so here's some you tries. Pause your video and try them on your own. All right, number 1, we want to translate to a mathematical expression and simplify. So it says the difference between negative 16 and 4. So difference goes right in order. Negative 16 minus 4. So now we need to do keep, change it to addition. Opposite of 4 would become negative 4. Okay, and now the signs are the same, so I add and keep the sign, which would be negative 20. Okay, the second one, negative 8 decreased by negative 9. That one also goes right in order. So negative 8 decreased by is subtraction, and you've got to be careful. You've got to have that negative 9 in there. So you need all those signs. So we're going to have negative 8, keep that the same, change it to plus, and the opposite of negative 9 would be positive 9. Now, negative 8 plus 9, they're different, so I subtract and get positive 1, keeping the sign of that larger number. All right, this one, 6 less than 2. So remember, less than, whatever's in front of those words has to go to the end and get subtracted. So 6 less than 2. You're going to have 2 minus 6. Okay? Now we do keep, change it to addition, and opposite becomes a negative 6. And now the signs are different, so I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So that would be negative 4. All right, I think these are the last ones, aren't they? Maybe? Hopefully. So it says subtract negative 4 from negative 1. So that negative 1 has to go first, and then subtract the negative 4 from that. Okay? So now we're going to do keep, change it to addition. Opposite would become positive 4. Signs, now look at the signs. Signs are different. So we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So that would be 3. All right, the next one, number 5, says negative 5 minus negative 4. This is probably one of the simplest ones. You just write it right in order. Negative 5 minus negative 4. Okay, just be careful with your signs. So we do keep the negative 5, change it to addition, and the opposite of negative 4 would become positive 4. So now the signs are different. So I subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is 5, so it's going to be a negative answer, negative 1. And here we have less than. Okay, so negative 7 less than 14. So we have to have negative 7 taken away from 14. So you're going to have 14 minus negative 7. So be careful there about those signs. Now we do keep 14, change it to addition, and the opposite of negative 7 becomes positive 7. Well, now you just have two positive numbers. 14 plus 7 would be 21. And that's it for section 1.3.